The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
It's time for another Dark Side of the Pooch. Dr. Rab, give me a bark. Go, baby. Oh, that was a good one now. That was good. It is Dark Side of the Pooch.
They're usually pretty bad. That was a good one. They're usually pretty bad. I've been practicing that one all week.
I can feel the wave of your tail right now. You must be in a good mood here. It's Dark Side of the Pooch. It's a show about pet care, dogs, kitty cats, animals in general, and it's a fantastic show. And, of course, if you want to give us emails, we have a bunch of them in our Mutt Mail again today here, TonyCurryRadio.net, TonyCurryRadio.net. And great news, Dr. Rab. This is our first show officially sponsored by Ed's Pet World. 37 years in the business. Seth, the entire crew, Angie, and all of them down there. I go down there about once a week down there. The best place in Birmingham for exotic and domestic pets and pet supplies, 879-1331, 205-879-1331. They also do birthday parties and group event shows. Check out Ed's Pet World in Homewood. How about that, big dog?
I have the biggest smile on my face right now because Ed's Pet World is awesome. It is so awesome. And the fact that we get to be affiliated with that, I love it.
Well, and they love being affiliated with you, and they're like, man, do you do sponsorships? We really love that Dark Side of the Pooch. Seth listens every single week, and I'm like, dude, you're in, man. So super excited about that sponsorship. All right, so we're midway through January. I know you always have some very interesting stories you like to share with us here at the Rossbridge Animal Hospital. By the way, you can follow them on Facebook. We're also on Twitter at Rossbridge Vet. 208-0301. It is Rossbridge Animal Hospital's Dr. Rab Stewart. What's been happening at work? Anything interesting happening to you?
We had an interesting case that you don't always see. I mean, it's not incredibly uncommon, but it's a condition called Addison's disease. Mm-hmm. And it's a disease where the body is not producing enough steroid, basically. So cortisol is what we measure. And
in dogs or cats?
In dogs. Yeah, you see this in dogs. And so if the body's not producing steroids, you really can't do a whole lot of bodily functions, believe it or not. Steroids are a natural production of steroids in the body is really important. And so what happens is the adrenal glands are not producing either one or two of a different type of steroid in the body. And it can affect almost every single thing in the body. You can see vomiting and diarrhea. You can see abnormalities in red blood cell count. You can see it can mimic kidney disease. You know, it can look like the dog's in kidney failure or renal disease, or they can just kind of be really lethargic. So it's an interesting disease that can sometimes be masked as a lot of other diseases. And it takes some blood testing to kind of figure out if it's a possibility that they could have this. They have an abnormality with their electrolytes a lot of times, so their sodium and potassium gets out of whack. But it takes a more specialized test where you measure cortisol after giving a certain medication to find out if they truly have it or not. And then the treatment is lifelong. Unfortunately, there's no cure for it. You can you have to supplement the steroid that the body is not producing. And usually you have to give them two different things. Usually you have to give them prednisone, and everybody out there is probably pretty familiar with prednisone. Mm-hmm. But then the other thing you have to give them is something called percortin, which is a different type of steroid. So you're giving them two different steroids, so then the body can be happy and do the bodily functions that they need to do to live. But it's an interesting disease. It's not incredibly common, but it's not incredibly rare either. But we saw a case of that last week, and the dog's doing fine. We were able to figure it out and get it treated. So, I'm not going to tell everybody, if your dog's lethargic, you need to get to a vet right away and have this test done, because like I said, it's not incredibly common, but it's something on the radar. Is
there an age that some dogs get this, or what are we looking at? How old was this animal?
It's younger to middle age. So this dog was actually 2. This was 2 when we diagnosed it in this dog. They can be older, but usually not. And for whatever reason, females get it more than males, but males do get it. I mean, you can't really go by oh, well, this is a male dog, there's no way it has Addison's disease. You can't really do that. But just from the research says that females are represented, meaning they get it more commonly than males. But a younger to middle-aged dog disease.
This is really interesting because, guys hate going to the doctors because we're afraid that we're going to go in for, a pimple on our back and it's going to turn out to be cancer and we're going to be dead within 3 months. Guys hate going to doctors because we're going to find things out. And as long as the engine's still running, we just continue to run. What other common medical issues are there with the dogs and cats you see that for the most part are kind of self-sufficient, like animals just live with it? There's really no symptoms, if you will, or things that are so obvious to us that we need to take our animal into the vet. I realize that animals, we should have checkups once a year, right, for all of our animals?
Really, it should be twice a year.
Twice a year, okay.
Just because their aging is more rapid than us.
Yeah.
So the recommendation is every 6 months. But there's a lot of diseases that you would never know a pet has because they don't talk, and otherwise they act okay. If they could verbalize, they might say, I'm feeling a little bit lethargic today, or my stomach hurts a little bit, or, I feel like I'm a little bit lightheaded, but it's not that bad. And so you don't see the symptoms. But two of the main ones in cats would be hyperthyroidism. Mm-hmm. So their thyroid's producing too much thyroid hormone. And that can cause, the main thing that an owner would see is weight loss because their metabolism's kind of out of whack. So an owner may notice that. But what we notice a lot of times is a heart murmur. It's just an abnormal heart sound. So if they were to come into the office for a routine visit, we would listen to their heart, we'd hear a heart murmur and say, it's possible maybe we have thyroid issues. So we would check that. But in cats, another real common one is just renal disease.
Yeah.
If a cat lives long enough, they're going to have kidney disease. We're going to have to do a blood test to find that out usually. Those are two really common ones in cats. Diabetes is also, but usually the owner's going to know eventually because the cat's going to be just peeing like crazy, going to the box. The box turns into a pond.
Yeah. Well, why do cats have kidney disease? You said if they live long enough, they're going to have it. Why?
It's just part of their DNA. It's just that's just what they get. Honestly, I'm not really sure why. But if a cat lives long enough, if their renal values are normal, I'm surprised.
Yeah. For the first time in U.S. history, our rate of aging actually decreased in 2021, and a lot of that had to do with COVID and the major influx of people that passed away from that. What have we seen from pets, say, over the last 10 to 15 years? I'll go back to my day. I don't think we ever took our dog to a vet for one thing. It just, we let the dog out, scratching the door, brings it in. The last 12, 13 years, we're good to go as a family pet. Now that we are taking more comprehensive care of our dogs and cats, is the longevity rate gone up, or is it relatively the same, or will it be the same?
I don't have any hard evidence in front of me, but that'd be a great question. I'm sure there's studies out there. There's no question that they exist. I just aren't aware of what the results are. But I couldn't help but think that they're living longer. Now it's really common to have a small breed dog, live to be 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And, large breed dogs, it's a different story. Some of these big dogs like Great Danes, especially, they just have so many ailments that can shorten their life. Heart disease is a really big one with large breed dogs. Also bone cancer in large breed dogs is really common, and they can get that really young, so that and heart disease. So, some of these pets, there's really nothing you can do to extend their life because for whatever reason, they have breed specific diseases that we just can't seem to beat, But, for other dogs, I think that the care and the testing that we can do to pick up on things early, I can't imagine that their life won't be longer than it was, say, 20, 30 years ago.
Let's head to our Mutt Mail here, and this is a perfect question. Jill asked the question, what's the oldest dog and oldest cat Dr. Rab has ever seen? We just had the oldest human being. They said she was 135, but there were like 16 years that were unaccounted for, so she still would have been 119, which is crazy. But what's the oldest cat, the oldest dog you've ever seen?
Oldest cat is 21 years.
21 years, wow.
Yeah, 21 years. And I mean, that's according to the owner, but I mean, I feel like that was legit. Oldest dog is 18. That's the oldest dog I've ever seen, and it was kind of not a toy breed, but kind of a smallish dog, kind of a mixed breed dog, and it lived forever.
And is there a reason why small breeds live longer than larger breeds?
Well, so if you get these toy breeds, these really small ones, I don't know that they have the longevity that other dogs have, but I think that a lot of it is metabolic issues and joint issues. For whatever reason, larger dogs are prone to, like we talked about a minute ago, bone cancer, but also even like not giant breed dogs, but just large dogs in general are prone to abdominal cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So these kind of medium size and smaller size dogs, you don't see those things. So I think that's why they live longer.
There you go. This is Darkside of the Pooch. It's a great show. We do it noon and 8 every Monday here on Tony Curry Radio's Darkside of the Pooch Monday. Brought to you by Ed's Pet World, around for 37 years, the best place in Birmingham for exotic and domestic pets and pet supplies. Give them a call, 205-879-1331. Ask for Angie or Seth or the fine folks down there at Ed's Pet World. I want to get into flying pets in just a few seconds. So we've lost the lives of at least 3 pets over the holidays en route from one destination to a next. We'll talk about that. But Tom in Birmingham wanted to get into something that I was going to ask you about anyway. That is shedding. I've got this Australian Shepherd. His name is Rainer, and he has never shed until like the last 6 or 7 months. And I've got hair everywhere. What makes a dog shed? What kind of breeds shed less? Is there a particular season of the year where dogs shed, and do they shed as they get older?
Well, all hair has to go through 3 different phases. There's a growth phase, an arrest phase, or a non-growth phase, and then a fallout phase. So the reason that dogs lose their hair is because at some point they are going through the fallout phase. But all these phases are happening at different times throughout the body. And that's why you don't go through one period of time where all their hair falls out, Yeah. Because if you did, then when a few hairs fell out, they'd all fall out. But, there are some dogs that their hair falls out less, like poodles. They don't do a lot of shedding, or dogs that are mixed with poodles. They don't do a lot of shedding. Havanese don't do a lot of shedding. But so I don't really buy into the fact that there are certain times of year that the dog sheds, like, a dog only sheds this time of year and it doesn't shed during that. It's just that maybe you have more hair that's going through that fallout phase for whatever reason. So that, you got those 3 phases, and that's why it happens.
Do much like cats do, and I don't know if cats actually build a coat during the wintertime, or it certainly seems like they're fatter in the wintertime. Do dogs build coats and lose coats during the season? Is there's an influx of hair there, or they just look different during different times of the season?
Well, if they're losing a lot of hair, like especially labs, you'll see that they have these little like you can look at them and just say that dog looks kind of strange. Like there's a lot of kind of tufts of hair. Like instead of having a nice flat coat, in certain areas it'll look almost kind of bushy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that those dogs may be going through a certain time where they have more shedding than other times. And you can just pluck these things off like you're picking cotton almost.
Yeah.
But it doesn't leave anything. It doesn't leave any bald spots. If you ever get bald spots from hair loss, that's a problem. There's a medical issue for that. There should never just be any natural shedding to the extent where you don't have hair present.
Okay. This is a very interesting story, and I saw the story yesterday. It's the 3rd one I've seen since the holidays ended. A Hawaiian couple who was flying back to Las Vegas with their pit bull lost their pit bull. Hawaiian Airlines is refuting that, saying the animal was too old and they promised to take care of it, and it died mid-flight when they got down on the ground in Las Vegas. What should we look out for when we're flying with our pets if we can't have them aboard the actual plane with us? And you can't unless, of course, they're a therapy dog. But what should we be looking out for if we're flying our pets across the country?
So was it in like the cargo hold?
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a special cargo area for animals because you'd be surprised how many people actually fly their pets. It's not. I don't think it's down. I don't work for Delta, so I don't know. But from my understanding, because I have flown pets too, there's a special area where it is climate controlled, and so they're not down there with all the luggage, and they're not going to be tossed around and everything else.
Right. So this dog was not with the owner. It was in wherever that designated area.
Yes.
Is. Yeah. I mean, it would be really hard to prove that there was any, negligence or any problem with the airline with that. Because who's to say that the dog wouldn't have just passed away if it were at home? But I think the main thing that you could do is just be sure that they've been examined, prior to travel. There are some diseases where stress can make things a lot worse. Addison's disease is one of those. So we talked about it at the opening of the show. Cats get a lot of viruses that if they're put under stress, it can exacerbate it. But if you plan on flying your pet, probably the best thing to do is have it examined, have some blood work done, maybe even have the blood pressure checked.
This is really, go ahead. No, continue, please.
Yeah. Prior to the trip, because they may have some stuff going on. And like we talked about, it's just not significant enough yet for the owner to pick up on it. But if the dog could say something about it, maybe that dog wasn't feeling well before the flight. Maybe it had an underlying heart condition.
Yeah.
If it was, a larger dog, again, like we talked about, heart disease can be really common, whether it's a dilated cardiomyopathy or an arrhythmia or a valvular issue. So if that's been going on for a long time and there's a stressful situation, then blood clot could develop. So there's all kind of stuff. So just stay on top of having your exams done, your twice a year exams.
Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital, Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook, at Rossbridge Vet on Twitter. And also, of course, you can give them a call at 205-208-0301. This is really fascinating because as you talk about some of these issues that animals have, and I think we all know that one dog that constantly looks like it's shaking. It's always freaking out. It's got so much anxiety. It never seems like it's comfortable. We know that animals can suffer from depression. Do some of these crippling conditions actually have to do with the longevity of an animal's life like it does for a human?
I mean, I think it can. I don't know that we know to what extent, because you can't really talk about how they're feeling with them. It's hard to understand to a really good degree how a dog or a cat is feeling, because so much of feelings is expressed with words. Yeah. I think that you can tell if a dog or a cat, if their personality is different. If they're not as social, or if they're just kind of out of sorts, if they're being aggressive, then maybe you can get a little bit from their their emotional state with that. But so much of that I think is left unknown because they can't verbalize it. So I don't know that we'll ever be able to correlate longevity with mental status in pets.
Go to TonyCurryRadio.net. That's Tony Curry with a K, CurryRadio.net, and become a bonehead, and you can drop your emails, and we'll read them right here on Darkside the Pooch. We do it at noon and 8 every single Monday here on Tony Curry Radio, one of our long-lasting shows and one of our best shows, brought to you by Ed's Pet World, 879-1331, 879-1331, the best place in Birmingham for exotic and domestic pets and pet supplies, right there in Homewood for over 37 years. Julie in Norfolk said that if our animals can get their paws burnt in the middle of summertime, why don't more animals get frostbite, and do they? We got another winter storm coming through now.
Yeah, I mean, they can get frostbite, but their paw pads are much more sensitive to heat than they are cold. So, I don't know what about their tissue causes that, but just the way that the pads are, they're really prone to blistering. Mm-hmm. But the other thing about that is when they're out in the heat, I do think that dogs will just have so much fun. They'll just run and run until they do get injured. Whereas I wonder if the cold is uncomfortable, and so they know more about getting out of that. Whereas if they're just if it's hot and they're running and playing, they may not realize that they're getting hurt, but that cold is more immediate. It's kind of like somebody that's playing a sport, I think. You may sustain an injury and not know it until the game is over, unless you have a really bad injury. And it's because, you just don't really realize it because your adrenaline's pumping. And when you have a dog that gets blisters, they're running around playing and that adrenaline is pumping. But usually when you have a dog that is out in the snow, that discomfort, they're going to feel immediately when they walk outside. So their adrenaline hasn't really had time to pick up.
So you just need to follow their lead, and pretty much if they don't want to go back in the snow, don't put them in the snow. They're telling you they don't want to go.
Yeah, that's right. And, but the thing about dogs' pads, so if you have a dog that spends a lot of time in the water, that'll soften the paw pads. And so then if they're running around on concrete or rocks or whatever, they're more prone to then develop a blister. So if you want to try to be cautious about it, if your dog is playing in the water, every now and then take a look at the bottom of the pads and be sure that they're not developing a blister. But the good thing about those type of injuries is they usually heal really fast. Mm-hmm. They look really pitiful at first. They're, almost totally non-weight bearing on the leg, but it usually only lasts maybe a day. And then by the next day that's healed up. So, they may get a blister kind of quickly, but the good news is it heals really quickly too. You're
listening to Darkside of the Pooch exclusively on Tony Kurre Radio, noon and 8. Fresh new shows every single Monday brought to you by Ed's Pet World, 879-1331. Skipper in Knoxville has got a dog that will not stop chasing everything that runs by it, whether it's a golf cart, a bicycle, or cars. He said he freaks out every time a car comes down the street. He said for the most part, the thing is fenced in, so it's good to go. It's got an electric fence, but man, as soon as a vehicle goes by, that dog will chase that car right up against it. How can you get your animal to stop chasing cars? And why are there dog chasers and some dogs don't want to have anything to do with it?
If he already has the fence, then if he wants to maybe invest in like a remote so that the dog, as soon as the dog starts to chase something, if he has he obviously has to be present and see it happening, but then he can kind of give that remote a little buzz. So if the dog starts to do it right away, he gets kind of a little discipline. Mm-hmm. So he could try that. That's what I would do first, rather than, give your dog medicine every day to try to make it less excitable, which we don't want to take away from their who they are. So it's just one of those, if it's just one of those situational things where when he's outside, I just wish they wouldn't run around so much because he might get hurt or he might hurt somebody else. I would look at a remote collar. But as far as being excitable, I'm not sure what makes one dog want to chase after the mailman and the other dog not care. I have a dog that will bark if he hears a leaf blow across the front yard, and it's annoying, especially if one of the kids is trying to take a nap. But I'm not sure what it is. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason if it's a purebred dog or a mixed breed dog or a big dog or a small dog. It's just differences in personality.
And maybe it's just the size of what they're chasing. I think we always had a dog that chased cars, and it ultimately was its demise. It got in front of one on State Route 42, and it was gone. I've seen dogs chase, obviously, squirrels, cats, deer, anything else that seems like it's a bit smaller than them. But when you're talking about trucks and cars and golf carts, it would seem not too wise to be chasing those down. And I think that's probably the most difficult part of this whole situation.
Yeah, for sure. But he should look into one of these collars, and it's going to take him sitting outside for a little while, and the dog has to, go through chasing something, and he's going to have to be there to witness it so he can, kind of give him a little buzz there. But I think if you do that a few times, it could break him of it.
All right, Dan in Atlanta. This is an interesting email because I never thought I'd see this question, but it's interesting. Dan is a competitive workout hound. He loves to work out, and his dog likes to go to the gym with him, and the dog actually goes into the gym and barks at him and jumps up and down whenever he's doing dumbbells and everything else. And so he's actually started working out his dog. He puts his dog on a treadmill. He didn't tell me what the breed is, but he said it's a very muscular breed. Can you build muscles in any dog breed? And is there any safe way to actually work out a dog outside running it or walking it? And is that a good idea?
Yeah, you can definitely build muscle in a dog. I mean, it depends on what breed it is. Any breed can build muscle, but some breeds are just, they're gifted with more muscle than others. I'll tell you something that you may not expect, but Dachshunds have some of the most muscular back legs of any breed that we see. Yeah. I mean, though, if that were a person, I mean, they could squat like 400 pounds. It's amazing how like muscled up those dogs' hind limbs are. And of course, pit bulls are just, really muscular dogs. But I just, they're not that much different than people, so those breeds that are highly muscled, the more they do, the more pronounced their muscles are going to be.
Yeah.
So, the sporting breeds, the athletic dogs, it all just kind of depends on their frame. Greyhounds, I mean, just their legs are massive, their hips, I mean, those muscles are so developed, but the more breeds like that exercise, the more pronounced it's going to be. Whereas if you have, a different breed, like a Cavalier Spaniel, exercise is important, but those dogs, number one, you're not going to notice as much muscle because they have a lot of fur. A lot of these dogs are really well muscled. They have short hair, so you see it easier. Mm-hmm. But then there are some breeds that they're just not genetically made to have really defined muscles.
Yeah, we may be onto something. Maybe Planet Fitness for Pooches or something. If we can do a workout show for animals. I'm sure there's personal trainers out there that would love to work out animals. This is, of course, Rossbridge Animal Hospital's Darkside the Pooch with Dr. Rab Stewart, brought to you by Ed's Pet World. They've been in business for almost 40 years, the best place in Birmingham for exotic and domestic pets and pet supplies. You can give them a call. Tell them Tony sent you. Tell them Dr. Rab sent you. 205-879-1331. They also do birthday parties and wonderful events for kids and everything else. Tell everybody how they can find Dr. Rab Stewart. You got the best place in town, the Rossbridge Animal Hospital. Tell people how they can contact you.
Yeah, you can call us. We're 205-208-0301. You can email us, rossbridgeanimalhospital@gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook by searching for Rossbridge Animal Hospital.
You rock, brother. Until next week, we'll catch up. And again, if anyone's got emails, send them to TonyCurryRadio.net. We thank you so much, Dr. Rab. We'll pooch you up next week.
Can't wait, man. Talk to you then.